Hi, this is Esther from Mandala Studios. Welcome to the workshop. We're making a Grinch mask today, part 4, the fur. So here we're drawing on the hairline, looking at the photographs and using a soft pastel, because otherwise it'll show. This is easy to rub off if it ends up outside of the area we put the fur on. So we just about got it where we think we need it. We've worked out that even though we had a bigger head, we still need more height in those insane spikes to get that really iconic look. So here we're trying to work out exactly what we need to do to get the spikes. Ideally we'd have really long fur, but we're limited to what we can get hold of, so we're making individual padded spikes and seeing if that works. Here we're discussing what we can do, and we've got a vague plan. So we're making a mock-up out of normal fabric to see if it works the way we want to. Feels a bit like we're doing dinosaur spines at the moment, but gradually getting there. We're adjusting the shape until we're reasonably happy with it, and now we're making a copy. So we're now pinning it all up, and then we're going to sew it, put some padding in and see if it works. So this is me sewing it up on the industrial sewing machine. This is nicknamed the Beast because it'll eat you, but it goes nice and fast. So I'm turning it inside out so that we get a good idea of whether it'll work or not. So here we are, trying it out, trying to get it in the right position, discussing whether it looks right, all that sort of thing. Adjusting it a little bit. And now we're making a bit of a pattern just so that we can cut it out more accurately.
What we're doing there, we're changing the locations of the spikes, so the front spike length is more proportional and the back of the head sits round the skull neater.
Yeah, because it was a bit weird to start with.
And you'll notice we keep walking away because we're looking at it from a long way across the room to make sure that it looks sensible from a distance rather than up close.
I think we were putting a panel in the back as well, weren't we? So now we're reasonably happy with the spikes. We're working out the side panels. Because one of the things we have to do is make sure that the fur is going in the right direction on different bits of the head. So you can't just use one big piece of fur. So we're putting some bits together here. You can see that there's a panel down the back that goes, and we've got arrows on it. You can see there's on that back panel there's a straight down arrow. Those are the direction the fur will go in when we cut it out. So on the back it goes straight down, and on the sides it goes about 45 degrees.
Yeah, we try not to let fur go any more than 45-degree shifts between different panels, so it looks like it's always got a natural swirl and flow to it.
So we're taking all the panels apart now by the look of it.
Yeah, I think we were pretty happy with that whole thing, so now we're taking the whole lot apart and we're going to lay it out on a big piece of paper and neaten up all the edges into actual pattern pieces that we can replicate, so we get lefts and rights and everything all neatly sorted out.
The yellow things are pattern weights. I highly recommend them if you're going to do a lot of pattern cutting.
And just see, we always mark on the direction of fur how many parts are of the pattern and which one this is and which location it goes in, so we've got an idea of how it goes back together.
And you'll notice we don't mark any seam allowance because we use a very tiny seam allowance on fur patterns, just enough to hold things together. If it was fabric we would put a bit of a bigger seam allowance.
So cutting the fur, we lay it out so we know which direction the fur nap's going in. Then we sort out all our pattern pieces so that everything's in the right orientation. Then cut out around the pattern with a razor blade from the back so that we don't cut through the pile of the fur at all, or as little as possible.
it can be a bit of a jigsaw puzzle trying to get everything with the fur in the right direction and still not use lots of excess fur.
Yeah, especially true when it comes to things like NFT fur, which is a lot more expensive than this.
Very expensive, but very, very pretty. You can get much longer pile in NFT, but
yeah, if you think back to the very start of the video, there was a little bit of white fur on the head we were looking at. That was seeing if we could use a little bit of NFT to get that spike.
I think we're just about last piece, I think.
Yeah, and it's all, you saw over at the end, I've had it all piled up, alternating piece and pattern piece, so we knew we had everything.
So now we've pinned up the first pieces and I'm sewing them together on the sewing machine. Normally we would use a zigzag stitch on this, but our zigzag machine was broken, and so I'm having to do it with a straight stitch.
You'll see where if we pin it, we keep all the fur as much as possible out of the pile, out of the seam, sorry, so that when it's folded back there's no trapped fur, and then we can brush it at the end and that should release anything that is trapped.
Yeah, it's very much worth doing that. Having to pull all the fur back out from the wrong side of the sewing is a pain, to put it mildly, and it never looks as good. If you can keep it the right side of the stitch line in the first place, then you do yourself a massive favour.
I know some people shave their fur seams, but I always find that if we do that, you end up with a risk of bald patches in your seam, so I'd rather just be careful with my fur nap poking through.
Which is why we have such a small seam allowance as well, so that we're minimising that risk. So I'm doing more pinning here, more making sure everything's in the right place and sewing the right seams, because you really don't want to have to unpick fur.
So now we've put it back over the head and you can see it's all sat around.
We're brushing the fur roughly in the right direction so that we can make sure it all is lying right and we don't need to take out any extra bits or make it look.
See, I was also just messing around with twisting some fur in some different directions. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you again next time.